I am the world's best auto glass installer for 2023. The competition is nerve-wracking. Procedurally, I'm there. There's just a couple hiccups in the past that prevented me from winning. The SIKA reps made sure that every need I had was met. That kind of support means a lot to somebody who's in the throes of competition. I use SIKA Ultimate because it has high viscosity, beautiful gunability, and it's just the best product on the market. Everything that I've ever wanted from a urethane manufacturer has been provided with SIKA.
Introducing AirPro Diagnostics' revolutionary calibration technology, Augie. AirPro Diagnostics' latest innovation is a game changer in forward-facing camera ADAS calibrations. Augie is a wireless compact device that allows you to calibrate vehicles anywhere. AirPro has created a theater-like environment to digitize and miniaturize static ADAS targets and present them to the forward-facing camera exactly as required by vehicle manufacturers. Find out how required calibrations can be simplified. Order your Augie today.
Welcome to Shatterproof, the Auto Glass Journey for Independence podcast. This week's episode, Looking Ahead, the Future of Automotive Adhesives with SIKA, recorded live in Las Vegas, Nevada, with guest hosts Mark OBrion and Mike Rea of SIKA Corporation. If you haven't already liked our podcast, click on the subscribe button below and also take a moment to like this episode so anytime we update the content, you will be the first to get access to all of this great media and industry information. With that, let's get into this bonding episode with your host, Gary Hart, and guest host, Mark OBrion and Mike Rea.
Hey, everybody, it is Gary with Shatterproof Podcast, and today we have a very great show set up for you, or episode. Today it's all about SIKA Ultimate. And we've got two very special guest hosts, one with me. So Mark OBrion, good morning.
Good morning, Gary. How are you?
Well, I'm doing very well. And Mike Rea.
I'm in Madison Heights, Michigan, just outside of Detroit.
Madison Heights, very good. And anytime I hear Heights after a city, I think like it could either be real bougie.
I was going to say that's very bougie.
Very bougie.
Whenever you have Heights, yeah, absolutely.
If you've ever been to Madison Heights, you would know that that is not the case. It's a very nice city, but there's nothing bougie about it. It's very blue collar.
Okay, well, cars burning, tires on fire, and things like that.
Exactly. All of our favorite things.
Obviously, they're both with SIKA. Mark, in your role, you want to give a little background because I think most people recognize you. We've been selling your posters, kind of like the Britney Spears posters, but with your head on it. So
exactly.
That's good stuff.
Some people may know me, some may not. But my name's Mark OBrion with SIKA Corporation. I've been in the industry, unfortunately, a long time, or maybe fortunate. But I started out as a child labor, 14, doing auto glass, cutting glass. I worked for a local glass company here in Las Vegas. I transitioned, I worked for some majors. Windshields America, the U.S. Auto Glass. Did a couple tours of duty with Safelite. I did 10 years with Migrant Glass.
Okay.
And now I think I'm on my 7th year with SIKA.
Wow.
So
7.
Yeah, kind of have the whole gamut from installation to sales, operations, wholesale, distribution, and now a chemical company.
And when you were involved in the distribution side, you had quite the territory. Right here in the Southwest.
Well, yeah. So with Migrant, I took care of the I-15 corridor. So basically Las Vegas, the little bit of Riverside, and then San Diego County. So San Diego, Chula, and then it kind of bled into Tijuana a little bit.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
So a great experience in this industry. It's been great for my career. I wouldn't change anything, as far as that goes. The auto glass industry has been very good to me.
So normally they say history repeats itself. So you were 14 doing a bunch of glass stuff. So you think as you're sunsetting in like 15 years, you'll go back to maybe installing glass?
No, my body is here's the thing. In my mind, I tell guys this. In my mind, I can do it. But in reality, I'm not doing that.
They got tools now. They got all these things.
I know. Yeah, they have great tools now.
I mean, you saw that Panther Pro thing. I mean, you just sit there with like a joystick and set the windshield and walk away.
Yeah.
I think it's meant for a bus, though.
And that's why I'm a big advocate of these tools, because when I was installing, I wish I had those tools, because I know there's a lot less wear and tear on your body. And trust me, at 56 years old, now I feel
that's young.
Yeah. Well,
because now Social Security 72 or something, or it's going to be like that.
Yeah, so I definitely feel, all that long knife, cold knife, fighting, muscling, everything, hand setting, but no setting tools. So I tell guys, look, utilize these tools, take the pressure off your body, and it's just longevity for your body and your career.
Somewhere I hear a young guy with a tiny violin going, oh, he had a handset thing. He's going to tell me he had to walk uphill and bare feet and snow to install the windshield. No,
thank God no snow installs. I give a lot of credit for guys that have to do that. Cold weather installations are not fun. So
I would just tell the customer, see you in the spring.
You can do that too.
Yeah. But then that's quite a vacation, if you will, in some places.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how the guys in Canada do it, but Alberta, those, you're up in the oil.
Well, hopefully they have shop locations too.
Sometimes they don't.
Controlled environment's always good. So
you're more of the, I'll call you the front office side. You're the forward-facing aspect of the SIKA product. You guys are the cheerleaders of the product. Yeah.
Well, yeah, obviously cheerleaders, and we are in the trenches. And we do make a lot of customer calls. I talk to a lot of customers. Our guys, in the whole region, we talk to a lot of end users. And I kind of look at our role as kind of somewhat consultants too, because we call on a lot of shops. So we see what this guy does as a one-man shop. We see what this owner does with 3, 4, 5, 10 technicians, how they market their business.
Right.
And then we always, talk to them. They tell us stuff that works for them. And then if we can share, I know this is a big topic sometime with insurance billing. If, customers are getting cleanup or rust repair or getting additional services from delivery, we'll share that information and go, hey, obviously you got to get it approved, but do that, charge for it.
Right.
Because we need to get paid for what we do.
Well, there's a product to sell, yeah. And speaking of getting paid for the product, so Mike, on the product end, tell us a little bit how you got involved with SIKA, or how you got involved with SIKA and your background. I hear it's a lot of cool geek stuff, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got my degree in chemical engineering. I was about a year away from graduation. I was looking to do an internship and reached out to a friend who had a friend who was working at SIKA, and went in and talked to him and had an interview, and they brought me in as an intern, and here we are almost 24 years later, and I'm still with the company. So, there's a reason that you stick with a company for that long, and for me, it's certainly the people that I work with on a day in and day out basis. It's really been a joy to come into work and work with folks like Mark and the rest of our AGR sales team. They're just fantastic people that you enjoy spending time with, and even when the work gets difficult, because that's the nature of work. If you got people on your team that you actually like and respect and enjoy working with, it really makes all the difference. So so I've, like I said, almost 24 years with the company now. That entire time, I've had at least one foot in the AGR world. I've had the other foot in lots of other application areas where SIKA is involved. So a lot of marine applications and transportation, RV, as well as the automotive OEM side. So had a little bit of exposure to just about everything that SIKA does, and then the past 7 or 8 years now dedicated to the AGR team.
Cool. And when we're talking SIKA, so you got SIKA, who's a global company.
Yeah,
and then you got SIKA USA, and I think for all intents and purposes, we're talking SIKA USA here.
Yeah, SIKA USA.
North America.
The division that Mike and I work for is called SIKA Industry.
Okay.
So, and SIKA Industry is, obviously Automotive Aftermarket, which is a segment that I'm in. Like Mike mentioned, marine. We have solar, wind, resins. Mike, help me out here.
Yeah, so tooling and manufacturing, bus, truck, and rail. SIKA is primarily known as a construction company, construction goods. So anything and everything related to building envelope. And, our industry group is pretty much everything else. So if it's not building envelope, then it's going to fall to us. So it's fun that way because you get to experience a lot of different things. You get to get your hands into a lot of different application areas. And it helps prevents the job from getting boring, and you don't get stuck in a rut that way. So
right.
That structure has been beneficial.
For you being 24 years with your toe, let's say, dipped in the AGR side, so you've seen a lot of iterations then of technology, adhesive technology for the automotive side. Just kind of a background, because I think obviously the veterans like Mark know back in the day. You got the original Gorilla Glue and some sneezing, and you just prayed that you said a butyl.
So when I started out, we used 711 PTI, and then that transitioned into Essex PTI, Essex urethane. There were some 3M urethane, something that didn't gun properly. So I was in the 80s, taking these cartridges, and these are horrible because they didn't even dispense. So urethane technologies have come a long way. Just like, we have a big OE presence, with our urethanes, as well. And in the 70s, 80s, all the manufacturers with all this urethane application, and then aftermarket had to adapt to that.
Well, when do we think that vehicle manufacturers started to really look at the structural integrity of the windshield specifically, and how the role of adhesives with that?
Well, maybe we'll do this two-part. I'll take the first segment, I think. But my opinion, obviously, it was in the 90s when airbags. So I went to the Carlite School back in the 90s. And I remember when, Ford introduced the Carlite School, they talked about crumple zones and crash testing, and I know what SIKA came into the U.S. market in 92, I believe. So that's when things really got serious in the aftermarket world with urethanes. SIKA had a polyurethane, hot applied, met all these crumple zones that manufacturers needed for airbags to keep that cabin intact. So I would say mid 90s, Mike, I think is when, the aftermarket really started taking urethane serious.
Yeah, I think that's a really good, kind of starting point for, when the urethanes really started getting high tech, right? At least in the aftermarket. Because even when I started, you had one product that was, that was used in all the OEMs here in the US. It was, I think, a 3-step, primer, two clear steps and one black primer step, on the glass and probably on the body as well. It wasn't high technology at the OEM level, back when I started in 2000. And, for me, I think that the aftermarket drove the OEMs a little bit in terms of looking at some higher technology type of urethanes, because, SIKA, we were the ones that introduced a hot applied urethane into the aftermarket, right? And what that allowed customers to do was to use a product that really had application properties that were absolutely, ideal for the application, knowing that a lot of this work was mobile, lots of different conditions. Now, if you preheated that cartridge before you used it, it came out the same every single time, right? And that's a huge benefit, because if you've got, a cold applied product, well, you run the risk of it being very, very different if you're doing an install at 100 degrees versus 0 degrees. It could be very, very different, right? So, the hot applied technology really allowed, the installer to have a product that was always the same, no matter what the ambient conditions were. And that was, really one of the early innovations in the aftermarket that really started driving this notion that, that these things can do more, right? We can be better with our urethanes and what we allow our users to do. So, it's fun to be. I'm sorry, please.
Would you say that a lot of this aftermarket automotive side, was it driven by other products like other transportation segments, rail or architectural? Or?
Honestly, Gary, I think that they kind of have always worked hand in glove, right? Rail tends to have very specific needs and very high requirements. The specifications around those rail products are somewhat unique. But, you never know when, an innovation on the rail side, like you said, might spark an idea in somebody for an automotive application. So I think they've always worked hand in glove. We're really talking about the same thing in a lot of these different applications, right? We're bonding a piece of glass into a vehicle, whether it's marine, whether it's a bus, whether it's RV, whether it's a car. We're bonding glass into a vehicle, and so there's always going to be a lot of overlap between those different modes of transportation. So I think they've really worked hand in glove. Where the automotive aftermarket maybe stumble into an innovation in one respect, but then maybe it's the RV market or the marine market that stumbles into the next innovation, and they all kind of work together. So
so speaking of stumbling, then typically, I would have to think in a company like SIKA, your R&D is years. Like you're working on stuff now that you might see 3-5 years from now. So what was the genesis of Ultimate coming to the market? Like when was that aha moment that something needed to change?
Well, I mean, just in my almost 7 years with SIKA, every year we go back to Madison Heights. We have a little round table with R&D. So, and I think they do this with all segments of business. And they say, what do you guys need? What can you use in the field? And then we give R&D kind of our wish list, right? And sometimes they go, yeah, let's work on that. No, we can't do that. But I think that's how Ultimate kind of progressed, is every year that I've been with SIKA, we've always said, hey, it'd be nice to have a 30-minute primerless product, right, Mike? I mean,
it was
a lot more discussions than I have.
It was always kind of, within SIKA, it was always, that end goal, if you will, that was the goal, right? How do we get there? And honestly, there's been a lot of voices within the organization who said, no, it's not possible. And maybe that pushed back, how willing we were to try and see if we could do it, right? Because of how difficult of a development project it really is. Because it is an extremely difficult development project because of how reactive a product like this has to be, right? So to try and have something that is that fast in terms of cure speed, is that fast in terms of adhesion buildup, it's a very, very challenging development proposal.
And that primerless aspect of it is so, I mean, it's so important in the process to make sure that with the older products that it's primed, because you're going to get that adhesion opens up on a molecular level. There's these things, and now all of a sudden, I'm guessing like the sales team's coming and going, here's our wish list.
Yep.
And it's like, was it year after year, or was it just like you dropped it? Like
No. This was always, like I said, we've been talking about this ever since I've been with SIKA. So that's
okay.
That's 6+ years. So
wow.
I think it's even been talked about longer than that. But in the industry, there's this premonition that a primerless product is low end. And, Mike and I have had this conversation.
Really?
Well, it's just, primerless products have always been a more inexpensive product, right? So if changing the mentality of primerless products, because the issue with primerless products it's not its low end, it's getting the 30-minute safe drive away time. You have tremendous adhesion with a Primerless product. That is not, it's getting the safe drive away time. And if you look at Ultimate, when you gun it, you can tell it's, we didn't take our Mach 30 and tweak it. We didn't take our P2G product and tweak it. This is a brand new technology, brand new formula that, SIKA came up with. And it's a tremendous product. But it is, again, it's not something that we already had and we changed. It's a brand new formula. And Mike was, just every day, we were testing and there was a lot of development behind it.
Well, so Mike, how many, was there a frustration point that it seemed like maybe we're never going to get here? Or you knew you'd get there, but I mean, with science today and things, I mean, it's amazing. But when was that breakthrough moment? Was it like the team high five, everybody got an email, or how did that work, Mike?
I would honestly, it was more gradual than that, right? Like Mark said, this is something that's been on our radar for a long, long time. And maybe in slower times and quieter times, you've got an R&D chemist that might be seeing if they could do it, but we never really found the keys to unlock that door until more recently, when we actually said, okay, the time is now. We're going to dedicate the resources needed in order to figure out how to do this, right? So, and once we made that decision from it kind of being a pie in the sky concept to being an actual development project that we were dedicating resources to, I'll be honest, there was no doubt in my mind that we would achieve what we set out to do. We employ some of the smartest people in the world. Our R&D team is really fantastic, and so there was never any doubt in my mind. But at the same time, there was never like an aha moment, right? Because it seemed like we would inch closer and closer with every iteration. So I work very, very closely with our R&D folk. They're actually out in New Jersey. So, we'd be on a Teams call like this, on a weekly basis, a lot of times, on a daily basis, and sharing results and sharing formulations. And, and we just kind of kept inching closer and closer and closer. And this particular formulation, maybe it hit, the adhesion that we needed it to hit, but it didn't hit the glass slip down that we were really trying to optimize, or, maybe the decking wasn't quite right, or, the cutoff string was a little too long, or whatever the case may be. And so we just kept getting closer and closer and closer until one day we landed on the formulation that really checked all of our boxes. And it wasn't necessarily an aha moment or a high five moment, but it was, kind of that fulfillment where you knew you were getting closer and closer and closer. And then, sure enough, you hit that point where, this is the one. And then that's when the real work actually starts, because, now you've got to set up a crash test, and now you've got to, take that formulation and move it to production. And, so, that's when all the, that's when a new set of goals start to pop up. And, and when we're still right in the middle of it, right? The work never really ends.
Well, that's what
we're really happy with how it turned out.
Are you, like, I know, like, scientists and nerds and all these guys that are like, I'm never happy. We arrived at a formula, but we can make it better, and there's somebody's always itching to tweak it more. So is it a product that's kind of living, that gets like some attention every now and then to say, oh, we found this in the field, can we just tweak this, and it happens? And maybe that's more so on the packaging and manufacturing side of the product, or?
Well, we did a lot of that with our testing. So obviously they would make some batches, and so we would get them into the field, and we'd get tests, like Mike said,
and get feedback,
and, cutoff string and the decking, all that stuff. And just like when we reformulated our Mach 30, it was the same thing. And we utilized Mike Stevens for that, in hot climates. And he would say, hey, it's close, need this, need that. And we'd, get that back to R&D, and they'll go, all right, here's some more.
Right.
So a lot of it, you definitely need your field testing.
Yeah, exactly. So, I would say, to answer that, it is a living product, a living formulation up to a point. But at some point you say, this is what we're going with. we've gotten the feedback from the field that, that we're comfortable with. We like where the product is at. So at this point, the product's not going to change at this point. And as you alluded to a little bit earlier, Gary, at this point we're on to the next one already. So things move very, very, very fast.
Yeah, I mean the marketing departments. I hope it's not Ultimate Plus. I'll be sad if they just give up. They can use ChatGPT now, and I'm sure come up with some fabulous name. So let's hope on that. But let's you kind of already alluded to some of the key benefits of Ultimate just in the genesis of the product coming to market. Obviously, you're listening to the glass shops. Most of them are probably Mach 30 users or other SIKA product users going, "We wish," or "Wouldn't this be great?" And you listen, you gave the feedback. So what are those key benefits right now of Ultimate? Like your top 3 that you go out with?
Well, I always like to say, at SIKA, we have advantages. We have advantages with our PDG product. We have advantages with our Mach 30, and obviously we have advantages with our Ultimate. Okay, so as an end user, and you're using currently a 30-minute product where it's mandated that you use a black primer on the glass, and there are technologies out there, competition, where you always have to use a black primer. With a 30-minute product. So with Ultimate, it actually changes that. So you as a company can, get rid of the step. You can, allow your technicians, if they're not super skilled, and we see this where technicians are missing their bond lines. They're getting a little overzealous with black primer. So then they're doing more cleanup with black primer. They're spilling it, on driveways. So what Ultimate does for a company, it lets them look at a product to see if they can lower their costs, for installs, speed up their training, their processes, and I think one of the biggest benefits with Ultimate is, and I see this all the time, and even owners make the same mistake, where in our industry, we have so many options now, Gary, for auto glass. One vehicle could have 5, 10, 15, 20 options, right?
Yep.
So a technician goes out, or even in the shop, and they're getting ready for the car, they scuff, they do their glass prep, they do their pre-treatment, they put black primer on this glass, and they go, "It's the wrong one." and this happens. And,
it does.
by using, Ultimate, this gives you the ability to return that part. You're obviously, it's prepped, which is done with a sponge, most times, or Scotch-Brite, but the product is still returnable. But once you prime that, and I've walked in the shops and we talk about this, they go, "Hey, see that rack over there? It's full of parts they can't return."
Yeah.
And some of these windshields are $300, $400,
Oh, yeah.
$500.
Yeah.
That they are just hoping somebody calls or they get another job with that opportunity. And then Mike can also on the technical side get into some of the benefits.
Well, yeah, and I think one of the biggest things that we're focused on as an organization these days is sustainability. Obviously, it's kind of a buzzword that everybody throws around these days, but we've got a whole group within the organization that is dedicated to exactly that. And I think that it's important to realize that Ultimate really fits into the sustainability push that we're undertaking at this point in time, right? There are so many regulations that are popping up regards to VOCs, and solvents and things like that. But, these things aren't great for the environment. And using a primerless product takes that, by and large out of the equation. Obviously you're still using a small amount for touching up scratches and whatnot, or, if you need to prime an encapsulated part, you might need a little bit of primer at that. But, primer consumption, is about 1/5, if not maybe even 1% of what it would be if you're using a primer to pre-treat every single windshield. So
right.
The sustainability aspect of this really can't go ignored. It's better for the health and safety of the installer. it's better for the environment. So that's really something that SIKA as an organization is really keenly aware of, and it's a big push in our organization right now. And we think that Ultimate really fits into that picture very, very nicely.
Well, and part of that too, on just kind of the combination of both, is you're also talking about the complexity of the vehicles now most require some sort of calibration.
Exactly, yeah. So with the Ultimate, it is a 30-minute safe drive-away time, or minimum drive-away time is what we call it right now. So what that does is allows you to do your calibration right away. If you need to drive the car, you can drive the car. You need to move the car, you can move it, do what you need to do, and get it back to that customer in the safe manner that it was provided to you. So,
and we really paid very, very close attention, to the decking and the glass slip properties, right? If you install a windshield and it sags on you, calibration is going to be a little tough, with those front-facing cameras and whatnot. So, it was something that we really wanted to pay attention to. So, we wanted to make sure that, anytime an installation is performed with Ultimate, you put that windshield where it's supposed to be, and it's going to stay. And I really think that we were able to achieve that goal that we set out for ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. And, and that's the thing too, when we're talking about, especially if it's a dynamic, you're talking about hardcore road driving at this point. That is a very key thing, that right from the set, and then you're moving on to clean up, doing some things, and then boom, before you know it, 30 minutes is ready to go, you're on the road. And for production, and this depends, and we don't need to get into the is mobile calibration a thing and whatnot, but the reality is there's mobile calibration, there's in-house calibration happening. In either case, that vehicle needs to move at some point.
Exactly.
And obviously during static, hopefully if you're in a production environment, maybe a collision repair shop or dealership, that you've staged the vehicle in its setting place where you're going to calibrate it perhaps, because to your point, Mike, the windshield's in and it's not moving.
Yeah, and like I said, that's one of the things we're very proud with this Ultimate. It has tremendous screen strength. And I tell customers when I'm demoing it or I talk about it, it is a professional grade urethane, and I recommend a setting tool or a 2-man set, because when you set this windshield with Ultimate, it's stuck, and like it performs a lot like our hot applied. So guys out there that have been doing it, as long as I have, and I think a lot of the techs with at least 20 plus years experience or 15 plus years experience have used our hot applied products. So it performs, when we developed it, it performs a lot like our hot applied. When you set or deck that windshield, it is stuck. And that's what you want. You don't want a glass slipping down, or you pull it around and the customer comes back the next day and your windshield slipped down, and all of a sudden you have to pull it out and put it up, or you're going to use minimal tape, if any, with Ultimate. There's a lot of advantages, to this Ultimate, other than being primerless.
Right.
Just the technology, the grab.
And I would, I'd go back to something that Mark had mentioned a little bit earlier. I think we didn't want to develop a product, that was 30-minute primerless, that felt cheap and didn't offer an installer, the application properties that maybe they've come to expect with a premium product, right? We kind of segment the market a little bit in that degree, where, the primerless products have always, been associated with the lower end of the market. And we knew that we had to face an uphill battle with respect to that perception, right? So that's why, because it's important to point out that primerless products they've been around forever. And if there were a problem with adhesion, there would have been, it would be very well known, right? With the millions and millions of installations that get done each and every year, if there was an adhesion problem, that would have been well known with respect to primerless products. But we know that that's not the case. We know that the primerless technologies do offer good adhesion. So why are they still, why historically have they been considered low end? It's because of the drive-away time. It's because of the application characteristics. And we knew that was specifically the uphill battle that we would have to face. So that's why it was so important to me, and that I, and all the conversations that I had with our R&D chemists, we've got to get the application characteristics right. This has to look and feel like a premium product. It has to be a premium product. If this thing is going to catch on the way that we think that it can.
Right, and when you perform the testing, so I think the SIKA crash test car is now pretty famous.
Yeah. I mean, like I said,
the guys like drag that around the country or something.
Yeah, and I get customers that say that, hey, let me do my own testing with it, and I'm like going, okay, well, we did the ultimate test. We crashed a car. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that testing for you.
Right.
So there, and
how would a customer test this? Drive at a freeway barrier and then jump car. I'm curious.
and I'm sure other people listening, to this podcast, even our competition, if they listen to this, they're gonna, kind of chuckle. But I get customers, they'll take urethane, they'll put it on a windshield, they'll set it on the roof or outside. They don't understand how to test urethane, but that's we're the professionals.
Sure.
And our competitors, they do the same thing. They spend lots of money testing. Guys, we do the ultimate testing, for you. So
don't be Beaker. You guys have already taken care of that. The Muppets Beaker.
No, yeah, and if you want to do some adhesion testing, in-house, just ask your rep. And so you're doing it correctly, and you're getting a true, version of the test.
Well, and in that test, I mean, so that was a National Highway Safety Institute offset crash test, I assume.
Frontal barrier, yeah. FMVSS 212 frontal barrier, 30 miles an hour.
Okay, and so was that the only test, or were there other tests? I mean, because we're talking a lot of money. I mean, those aren't. You had to have worked with a manufacturer, say you have to test your car anyway. How about we do this? I mean, you have the relationships with OEMs, right, Mike?
We do, yeah, and the OEMs do crash tests, but they have the benefit of crashing a car with a fully cured bead of urethane, which we do not have that same luxury. So, the stakes with the OEM tests tend to be pretty low. With most bonded systems, the adhesive is over-engineered. To provide way more strength than is required for the application. But, that is definitely not the case when you're talking about a product that was just applied 30 minutes before, right? You've got a little bit of a skin on that product, but, maybe not if it's a little cooler and drier. So,
So that car was on the launch deck. You guys put the windshield in.
Correct.
We
set the timer the second the windshield was decked, and
I believe we'll send you the video link.
Yeah, we'll throw the video up in this.
Yeah, and you can link. We are very proud. We did have 100% adhesion, with the crash test. So, like I said, the Ultimate is a tremendous product, and I think you really need to see it to believe it. And my guy who works for us, Mike Stevens in the Southwest, he's got a great, verbiage for this is, give it 2 weeks. Give me 2 weeks. And you'll see the advantages, because, for whatever reason, urethane's very personal to people and companies. Yeah, wow. It is. It is very personal. You'll get companies, that, no, nothing you're going to say, Mark, change my mind. But give us 2 weeks or give the product 2 weeks and see the advantages, in the process. And with SIKA, another advantage we have, if you have that mentality, I still think I need to prime everything. Well, with the Ultimate, if you still want to activate the glass, you want that, we call it the belt and suspenders method, right? Sure. So if you want to still use an activator, or if you're using one of our competitors' products and you still want to put a pre-treatment on there, use our activator. And then once you get confidence with the product, you can eliminate that step.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's one of our advantages with Ultimate. If you still want to use that pre-treatment, you can. It's not necessary, but if you want,
that's just weird. I mean, it's a try. First of all, I mean, all shops complain about cost,
exactly.
and so to want to still use that hand-holding method of yesteryear technology, it's a straight. Well, I mean, it's a mentality thing in our industry to start with, and changes for humans is never good, and people are leery. You have a product called Ultimate, so everybody's like, I would say that's a premier name, first of all, premium name.
Mm-hmm.
And second to that is, if you tell me I don't have to do any of these things anymore, great, because why spend the money? And second to that is it's time. So, we're not talking a lot of time, but it's still time in the scheme of setup and prep. And
yeah, you're still going to do your glass prep, and that's, to me, I always say, two most important things a technician can do is your vehicle inspection, because we get blamed for everything, and two is your glass prep, because you're only as good as what you bond to. So you're still going to do your glass prep, because the windshields we have nowadays, different technologies are used to make these parts now. So we are seeing more and more contamination on these parts. We're seeing interlayer frits, and even with the interlayer frit, if you're using Ultimate, you do not have to use a pre-treatment on an interlayer frit. And if you want to talk about the testing we did with interlayer frit with Ultimate, that may be something to discuss, because that is a question we get. Because when you see an interlayer frit, we just aggressive glass prep, and that's where if you're using a SIKA product or a Mach 60 or a Mach 30, we're going to tell you to put 207 on the glass with that interlayer frit. But with Ultimate, you can do your glass prep, your aggressive scrub, make sure all that tin contamination is gone, and use Ultimate with no pre-treatment.
Yeah, we approach every adhesion test the same way. We get a substrate material into the lab. We're going to prepare it in some way, shape, or form. We're going to apply the adhesive that we're looking at, and then we're going to set it through an accelerated aging cycle. And every single time we're looking to enter into an application area, we are going to run that adhesion test, and we're going to run it the same way every single time. So, for a primerless product like Ultimate, or our P2G products, what that means is we get the piece of glass in. We're going to make sure that it's contamination free per our procedure, right? Spraying with glass cleaner, looking for, any sort of, looking for good wet out, making sure it's not fish eyeing at all. If we do see signs of contamination, we'll address that with a sponge. And then once that contamination is removed, the adhesive goes right onto that surface without any additional pre-treatment, and then it's got to go through the exact same accelerated aging cycle, that we would use if we were using an activator or a primer. So all these things get tested the exact same way. So, a system from SIKA that is primerless, we have a high degree of confidence is going to, afford the technician and the end user, the same level of adhesion, the same durability, as a system with a primer or an activator. But
Sure.
The importance now becomes, well, we do have to make sure that we're getting we're removing the contamination, because to what Mark said, urethane could stick great to a layer of dust, but that layer of dust might not stick all that well to what's underneath it, right? So we've got to make sure that that any sort of silicone oils or pesticides or whatever it may be that might be found on the surface of that glass, we do want to make sure that that's removed. But with our system of with the sponges and in a glass cleaner and a little bit of a scrub, we have confidence that we can remove that contamination effectively.
And just so we're thought, this is an interesting point, because we've talked about the OEM process and whatnot, but not to go on the side, but just something that Mike just said is, so when we talk about MDAT or SDAT, how on the manufacturing side, and I'll throw a video up here, and it's a car and it's getting its windshield put in, but it's hot, suspended of the air, it's in a rail system, and all of a sudden this robotic arm comes out and goes and hits the bead around, and then another robot comes out and sticks the glass in, and then it moves.
Yeah.
So what is the product differentiation or terminology that, why is that allowed to move right away? Yeah, and this is some of the defect we see when people pop off like an F-150 and go, "Good job, guys," and the urethane has bled down, or
well, maybe Mike could talk about it. But when you're talking an OEM installation,
yeah,
it comes from a barrel, and I believe some of it is heated, to a certain temperature to get the characteristics that it needs to. And then once it gets down to the line, Mike, I know a lot of these are somewhat cured by the time they get to the end of the line. Is that correct? Because of their formulation, I should say.
So the requirements at an OEM level tend to be fairly different than the requirements at an aftermarket level, right? At the OEM, and the push these days from the OEMs, similarly to the aftermarket, is for fewer and fewer pretreatments, right? It's an added expense. It's VOCs in the plant, So, but the benefit that they have, at a Ford plant, versus someone replacing glass in the aftermarket, they know exactly which frits that are being used for every piece of glass. They know exactly which paint systems are being used. And so they're not shy about coming to us and saying, SIKA, here's the list of paints that you need to stick to. Here's the frits that you need to stick to. Develop a product that sticks to these specific paints and frits, right?
So
and
the
then,
line has its own specific adhesive.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Yes, exactly correct. That
we have to stick to everything. Like I can't
exactly,
but every manufacturer has different frits, or they may even change their vendor where they get their frit or their paints from, or they may change a process. Just like when Pilkington came up with the interlayer frit on the DOT 177, we've talked to them. I don't think they've really said why. Obviously, it's some kind of cost, but here's the thing with aftermarket is we have to figure out how to bump
all of it.
All of them, yes.
And sometimes it's trial and error. And the great thing about us is if you have a problem adhering to a certain part, a certain number, Mike he's done this. We will go to that migrant or that PGW or that Pilkington or Import or whoever's in Michigan, buy that same number, same DOT, and do our testing and go, okay, this is the process.
And we even take it a step further. We'll, every year or two, we'll go out into the aftermarket, pick up 10 or 15 pieces of glass and test every product that we offer, on those pieces of glass, just to make sure that nothing's getting past us, right? It's just something that we can do to be proactive. Is just, on a regular basis, go out, grab a random sample of glass and make sure that, our system is performing the way that it's supposed to.
And one of the things that's interesting, so the bonding on a molecular level, so you're talking a little light prep is still required.
Well, I would say light prep anymore, just because the contaminations that we see. I always say aggressive scrub everything.
Okay, aggressive.
I mean, just because you never know what you're getting. With XYG, they do a process. They have open pallets, like Mike talked about the pesticides that they put in every container versus a closed pallet like an FYG, right? So certain contaminations may hit an XYG versus an FYG or a Pilkington or a Vitro or Sysicam or whatever manufacturer. How they package may be a little different, and I do know over in China they still follow COVID protocols. So at the dock, everything gets a spray. So anything with open pallet design, that glass is getting hit with something.
Okay.
So as a professional, a technician, a professional, we have to recognize those contaminations and we have to make sure they're off. So like I said, every glass should get a glass prep.
And then once the glass prep's done, so ultimate it's like high glass and it gets in there and it's bonding into. Is it fair to say it bonds right into the glass substrate?
Yeah, I'll let Mike talk.
Correct. We're actually forming a chemical bond between the adhesive and the and the frit surface or glass surface if it's interlayer. So it's actually forming a chemical bond between the adhesive and the surface.
Yeah, because and a lot of consumers, it's funny every now and then. I call it clickbait, but the little what are the little dots around your windshield, or why do you have a black band, and it's called a frit, and they don't really go into the importance of that whole technology that's there, and so consumers don't value why a glass shop should do good prep, and this is why when you're selecting a shop, the product the shop uses, and they should advertise. Like I'm sure a lot of your shops probably advertise we use SIKA. Now, to a customer, if they happen to Google it, maybe they find out great. But on the other hand, it really is important that a glass shop should tout why they use Ultimate, why they use SIKA products.
Well, I think with any product they use, they should educate the customer of why they use a 30-minute product or why they're using Ultimate. So that customer, you can return that vehicle and get it calibrated, put the windshield in, and return it to them in a safe manner. So if they were ever in an accident, that cabin stays intact and everybody is safe on the inside. So, as an end user, of SIKA urethanes, you should, scream that from the mountaintops. It's all about safety. Everything we do, the steps we take, our whole manual, the reason we do what we do is all based around safety. The reason we calibrate now, right?
Yeah.
Safety.
Yeah.
That everything we do, and us, with SIKA, utilize our resources. We do obviously in-house training. We'll talk to technicians. If there's, adhesion issues, we'll look at it. Why did we fail? Was it our fault? Was it a technician issue? Was it a glass issue? We send stuff back to the lab, and Mike Tessin will say, hey, this is what we found on the glass. Because and I always tell customers this too, when you get a stress crack or a leak or something comes back, or even if you're redoing the job, check your work, pull that windshield out, put it on the caddy, and look at it and learn from it. Did you get grade 2-side adhesion?
Yeah.
Did it stress here? Why did it stress? It's like, hey, I got a good footprint all the way around, but on the side, I missed my bead, and now the guys are tooling. They're pushing all that urethane in.
Yeah.
That's why it may have failed. That's why it may have happened early.
Well, and it could go back to tools or two-man set, to your point as well. I mean,
I would say placement of your urethane and the amount you use is so important. More is not better. Placement is so important, and that's why I love companies out there that may have a lead trainer, and he's there to check techs and call them out. When they get something back, look at it, show the tech. I know you had a shaming thing on one podcast I heard, but not shame, but just to educate them, right? Go, hey, you missed your footprint. So when you gun, if you're gunning the body, you want to make sure you run the proper amount and you hit your target. Yeah. You're going to have great success.
Well, and you bring up this. So I at the beginning of this podcast, we rolled your James Chapman segment and maybe a few others where the word gunability. I believe this is going to be the catchphrase of the industry.
And I'll talk let Mike talk about the gunability of Ultimate. I mean, it's tremendous.
Superior gunability.
Yeah.
Well, obviously it's important for us to be using the same equipment in our labs that people are going to be using out in the field, and that's actually true. If Gary, if you ever want to make the brave DTW and take a trip out to our Madison Heights facility here, happy to give you the tour and kind of show you, whether it's the pumping equipment and the dosing equipment and the robots that get used on an OEM floor, or the the M18s that are getting used by the majority of auto glass installers. We want to make sure that we're using the exact same equipment in our lab that the people who are using the product out in the real world are using. So so it's important to me to, anytime we're going through a development process, get that product in, gun some out at room temperature, make sure we're not overtaxing the gun, cool some down 40 degrees, and see, is it still going to be gunnable at that point? And how does it run? Is it coming out all sloppy, or is it coming out and giving you a nice triangle? All these things are super important. But to me, the most important part of that whole thing, again, like I said, whether it's OE or aftermarket, making sure that we've got the exact equipment that's being used out in the field, and that we're not going to see any issues when we put this product in our customers' hands.
Sure. And you say labs, so now I just go like 007. Guys are down there rocket testing, like train glass. And,
Yep, that's pretty accurate. Yep.
Yeah, I'll throw this out to anybody. If anybody is in the Detroit area or Madison Heights, we welcome. You can go.
Absolutely.
He can take you through the lab and kind of see what we do as manufacturers.
It's a cool tour. It's a neat facility. We do some pretty cool things.
Also see what SIKA does. With our OE presence. And granted, we don't scream that from the mountaintops, but we do have a tremendous OE presence. From glazing to sound dampenings to seam sealers, all the products that we have.
Well, and for the automotive segment, I call it cradle to grave, OEM to aftermarket. You understand the vehicle's requirements more than most, probably.
Yeah, and so we take that OE, and then in aftermarket, we manufacture our products to meet all of their requirements. So they have to test out a certain way in strength and durability, and we have to make those per their requirements.
And then as you move into the aftermarket, you're also setting up your training and best practices for all your products, but like specifically Ultimate, you had to rewrite the book, so to speak, and saying, okay, here's your new prep, here's those things. So talk a little bit real quick about what a good Ultimate installation looks like from start to finish.
Well, Mike, why don't you start, and then I'll kind of on the end user, because I always say Mike's the smart one, and then I have to I'm in the trenches, so as far as an installer,
I'm the smart one. Mark's the good-looking one. We got a couple other. We got Doc and Happy somewhere off. I think out in the west there too. But yeah, we had touched a little bit about on the gunability part, right? And there knowing that this is a very high viscosity product, right? When I've tested it in the lab, I can gun it down to usually 50 degrees is usually not a problem. 40 degrees I can usually get it out, with a little bit of reduced speed, but it's usually still gunnable. But if that product itself gets down below 40 degrees, it's going to be really difficult to gun it out, just because of how viscous it is, right? So to me, step one is, you do have to make sure that product is, ideally somewhere around 70 degrees when you gun it out, and if that means throwing it on the dashboard or on the floor in the front of the van to warm it up in the middle of winter. I know you guys don't have to worry about that nearly as much as we do here, but it is a concern for a lot of installers, and it is something that we do have to be aware of. So that's kind of step one for me, is making sure that you can't leave it in the back of the van when it's getting down to 0 degrees, come in first thing in the morning and expect the product to gun. It's just not. We're kind of exceeding the limitations of the product at that point. So we do want to see it 50, 60 degrees. 70 is fantastic, in order to make sure that we can gun it out. And then after that, it's a pretty standard installation, right? We definitely want to make sure, as we mentioned earlier, that we're decontaminating properly. So hit the glass with the glass cleaner. Look for proper wet out, and if there's any evidence of fisheye or beating up, we want to make sure that we are addressing those contaminated areas. With either the sponge or a Scotch-Brite. Scotch-Brite works equally well as the sponges. I'm a fan of both methods, so I don't have a problem as long as we are addressing those areas of contamination. It's all to the good, and then you're really ready to go. There's a little bit of attention to detail on the decontamination side, but other than that, it turns into a pretty standard installation.
Okay. And then one thing I will add, I know Mike said, it's a very high viscous product. So when I take it into a shop, first thing I'll hand them a stick or the urethane, and they go, wow. And I tell them, hey, don't freak out. Yep. You're just going to roll it out like a rolling pin. If it has any, flat spots from packaging, you put in your gun, open your Unipack, with a little smiley face, option. Don't clip the end. Use a little smiley face, cut it open. And he talks about warming it. I'm a big advocate of warming bags. You get, just basically heating from all sides. When you put stuff up on your dash, I'm not an advocate of dash, because One, I think it looks unprofessional, and it's a safety concern because if you ever get rear-ended, all of a sudden it's a projectile. And I know 2 guys that have missing teeth from a cartridge coming back and hitting them. There's a gentleman that I know, he had his extractor up there. And he got cut in the head by his blade. But so I'm not a big advocate of putting stuff on your dash. One, I think it looks unprofessional and a safety concern. But yeah, Ultimate, you do need to warm it. They do make warming bags. I'll give a shout out. The Pipe Knife Company, they make a great warming bag that brings it to that, 70 degrees, 80 degrees. You can take it mobile. You can keep it in your shop, but, in the Southwest, we really don't have, an issue. But with cold applied urethanes, you have to be consistent with your heating, and like Mike said, you can't keep in your van, the guy takes it at home, it's 0 degrees out or 5 degrees out.
Well, it's just not the van. A lot of these that I'll call them warehouses, but your bay, they're not heated in the winter until you get there and you turn on the overhead lamps or something. But yeah, I mean, they're just sitting there in the boxes. It's one of those things.
And that's just not an Ultimate issue. If you were using, even our competitor's product, you do need to bring it to a gunability state.
Sure.
And that's when, Mike talked about this with our hot applied that we've had for years and years. The advantage is to hot applied, it works the same. It doesn't matter if it's 120 degrees out in Phoenix or it's, 0 degrees in the Northeast. The product is going to gun identical.
Sure.
Because it's hot applied. But
it's some of those, would you say, like, common mistakes with the Ultimate product would be like what temperature scenario?
In that aspect, always bring it to, a warm temperature where you can gun it. But the advantages with Ultimate, like we've talked about, is the installer. If he's using a pre-treatment, he's not going to miss his bond line. And I think I saw a post on Facebook maybe last week or a couple of weeks ago. A guy took a picture where his technician, missed the primer.
Yeah, he did. I think we saw the same one.
And also, and guys can relate to this too, where you're not sure where your bond line is. So you take 2 daubers and they're sticking in the primer and they're painting the entire bottom of the windshield. So really, you're wasting a lot of product. You're wasting a lot of time. And with Ultimate, it takes all that guesswork away.
Yeah.
Scrub it, do your glass prep, run your urethane set. So it does streamline your process a lot.
And so I guess the new term is foot soldier. So So you've got a great team throughout the country.
I believe so. Yeah.
That they're there for the shop to say, hey, I want to dip my toe in this.
Yeah.
Come show me.
Yeah, I recommend, and we'll get a list of territory managers, but we have great territory managers across the country. Obviously, we oversee a lot of states, but definitely reach out to us and get a demo. We'll come in, we'll talk to you about the product, and you can see the advantages.
Yeah, and I've seen like some of the territories. They're at Migrant, they're at IGC, they're somewhere. Yeah, they're sponsoring some donuts or some hot dogs.
We call it a SIKA Sunrise, so we do set up tabletops at our distribution. Because I think we have a very good coverage with our distribution. Obviously we have the Migrants, the PGWs, the Pilkingtons, the imports, and then smaller, regional, distribution. We have those as well, and we do set up tabletops. And here's the thing: we want to educate the industry. We're here for you guys. You have questions, or even ask. If it's not even, because some people don't want to talk about your thing, but we'll let you know what's going on in the industry.
And I know some of the things that come up because people feel like they're about 100 feet tall on social media. Mm-hmm. That's great. It's their prerogative. And they tend to say like, oh, I've had this problem with the product, or I'm having problems with something. And instead of directly contacting the company or the rep that they're with, they'll just start to make these assumptions. And then other people will glom on, and judgment bias kicks in because they think that they've had the same problem, but in reality it was, no, your cartridge was 30 degrees probably, or there's some, or you only, to your point, you had it on the dash and it's only warming one side.
Exactly.
And when we're taking these things in, if there is an issue, they receive product or materials that sometimes it's not your fault. The distributor sent expired or about to expire product.
That has happened as well. But I always tell guys, if you have an issue with anything, it'd be no different if you get a piece of glass delivered. Reach out to your distributor where you got it from. They'll make a post on social media, and somebody will say, "Hey, did you let them know?" No. But yeah, and I think we have a great sales staff. So if we see something, we'll contact the customer if it's something that's on our end. And a lot of times it's just talking to them, and they find out, oh, you know what? I didn't know that.
All right. Cool. Because from when it leaves the factory to when it gets to the end user, there's so many times that changes hands, and we know supply chain's not perfect. Handling in warehouses may or may not be good. Yep. And then two, sometimes shops will go and pick it up, and you don't know what the process is between those. And,
that's even in our training, I even tell guys, just because product shows up from your distributor, always look at it. Make sure you're using it within the proper dates, because it's a product that expires, and if they don't rotate it, you're gonna get expired product.
Right.
And always look at your dates.
And two, if there is an issue, so let's say you got 6 applications, 6 tubes, and one could be bad. It's not a perfect world. It's not the end of the world, right? There could be something that just spit out at the end while it was,
mistakes happen in manufacturing, and Mike and I talk about this from time to time, where if it's a cartridge, we talk about there's these witness marks around our plungers, and manufacturing sometimes they miss that, and we get it. We do a QIR on it. And a lot of times we can recognize what batches those are, and there's times we may have to quarantine some. But if we're manufacturers, we're not always perfect. So if there's ever an issue, we always say reach out to us and let us find out what happened.
Exactly.
Everybody makes mistakes.
So. To me, as much as at SIKA, we're always striving for innovation. We're always striving for high quality materials. In my time with this organization, I have seen that we do one thing better than anybody else, and that's we make ourselves available to our customers. And I strongly believe that is our strongest suit. When you are buying a tube of urethane from us, you're not just buying a tube of urethane. You're buying access to to our sales staff. You're buying access to our technical support. You're buying that if there is a potential quality problem, you can get on the phone, talk to a sales rep who's going to talk to me, and we're going to take it very, very seriously and make sure that we're doing a root cause analysis to make sure we understand why this happened, and implement the corrective measures to make sure that it doesn't happen again, and make sure that we at the same time are making it right by our customers. So that's one thing that is probably the most important thing to me in my job, is approaching every customer as more of a partner, and not just a meal ticket, right? I want to be the one that's talking to customers, finding out what's working, finding out what's not. If there is an issue, finding out why something went wrong, talking to the plant, talking to our quality team, and having these conversations that sometimes might not be the most comfortable conversations, but that's the only way you can continue to get better as an organization, right? Yeah. If you're not listening, you're never gonna improve. So that's one thing that I really think that that SIKA as an organization really excels at, and that's something that we do across the globe. That's that's an edict that's passed down from from the highest levels of our organization, by our corporate team over in Switzerland, and it's something that we take to heart. I think every employee feels that same sense of dedication to to making sure that we're doing right by our customers.
Right. And I can say from just my experience in working with team members at SIKA, but also too seeing the industry feedback, the organization does a very good job in communication. So no one should feel out there that they can't go to their rep and say, I have a problem, and they're not going to feel shamed or
And also, I see this from time to time too, is somebody will say, I haven't seen a SIKA rep in 10 years or 5 years or whatever. But guys, just remember, squeaky wheel gets the grease. We cannot be everywhere. We can't travel to all these outlying areas to see all these glass shops. That's why we do a lot of SIKA sunrises. Obviously, we're focusing in the primary areas, but reach out to us. If you want to see us, you want training, you want some education, get a hold of us. And I know we're going to give you a list of territories and reps, or ask the distributor, hey, who is my SIKA rep? And how do I get a hold of them? They will give you our number and email, but definitely reach out. And granted, we can't get to everybody, as we're making our rounds, but we'll make a special trip.
Yeah.
You want training, we'll schedule it and we'll get to that outlying area in Wyoming or the Dakotas or Missouri or Texas because keep in mind, we do cover some territory, and we may not get there tomorrow, but we'll get there.
Well, and with today's technology, kind of like the way we're all here right now,
Yeah.
you can you can do it over video, FaceTime, and there's like Zoom.
Yeah, I did a certification training on Teams for Alaska.
See?
Yeah,
you missed out on Ketchikan fishing? Come on.
It's funny. He never misses a chance to go to Hawaii, but the Alaska ones are always on video.
Sorry, Alaska.
And I do encourage everybody to get your training. Regardless if you have 15 years or 20 years or 25 years and you think you know it all, trust me, you will take away something, just like we talked about with contamination.
Yeah.
Glass is manufactured different than it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So
we kind of also touched on, we moved on, Mike, to the next product because, Ultimate's great. Ultimate's here. What are we looking at the future of adhesives? Like, are we looking to get that safe drive away time down to like 5 minutes or no minutes? There's instant adhesion is great in medical, but
yeah, it's one of those things, Gary, that we talk a lot about. Where is the next avenue for us to pursue? What's the next innovation? But when we look at the reality of an installation, there's not much benefit in having a driveway time under 30 minutes, right? Because by the time you get the cowling back on and the wipers back on and you finish up the paperwork and and give the customer the instructions that they need, you pretty much hit that 30-minute mark. So when we talk about it, the amount of effort it would take to develop such a product, there's just not a huge benefit. So it is certainly something that that we will continue to talk about. But when you ask about where is this particular market going, for me, where I sit today, I think it's a little bit hard to tell. We see with the ever increasing number of calibrations that are taking place these days, there's does that drive more work back in shop as opposed to as opposed to more mobile installations? And I think that there's still some unknowns surrounding that. And if that work does go back in shop, well, do we start thinking about bulk dispense and maybe pails or drums? Does that make more sense in a shop environment? But what I think I can say very confidently is that at SIKA we're in those OEMs. We're doing drum, we're unloading drum material every single day, at RV manufacturers, at the automotive OEMs. We know how to do that. We're also very good at, cartridges and unipacks, and we've always got one eye on innovative, packaging designs and ways to achieve, faster cure. There's always at least one eye looking in all of these directions. So I think that gives us the ability to be a little bit nimble in how we respond to the market, with there being some unknowns in play. So I can't tell you for sure that that the next thing coming, the next big innovation from SIKA is a 15-minute product, when the next innovation might be a novel method for dispensing in a in-shop environment, because that's where we see the the industry moving towards. So,
Sure.
I think what's important to me is that, we've got the right people in place, having the correct conversations, and then, knowing our own organization enough to put the correct pieces onto the chessboard and make the correct moves. And I think we're very well positioned, to make whatever move makes the most sense for the industry and for our customers.
Right, because when we talk about the aftermarket, I mean, so we've got our ARG, and that's great. So here we are, we're over here, and that bleed over into other production aftermarket, collision repair, and those types of things where, the argument on calibration, dynamic, more so is that the OEMs are given this ability to say you can do dynamic instead of static. You have the option, and more OEMs are going towards that dynamic aspect, in my opinion, and just talking with others. And you can go back on some of our podcasts and listen to some other experts that are agreeing with that sentiment, that now in my opinion, dynamic has always been self-calibration, because that's what it is. So when we talk about a vehicle that self-calibrates, that's what dynamic is. Yeah. Whether it's a technician driving or it's the consumer driving the vehicle, that vehicle is going through its routine of self-calibrating, and now it becomes of like, well, in a glass shop, you're absolutely right, Mike, is that the tech has a lot of things to do before the car's going to move for a dynamic anyway. It gets a little bit trickier when we get into the collision repair side, because production schedules deem how this vehicle needs to be moved around. Do they have an glass guy, or are they bringing it in? And that's the area of, I don't want to necessarily say the automotive glass industry, but it's definitely hand and foot. And that's the only reason why I bring up was like 15 minutes in a collision repair environment, very possible. Because you don't have customer requirements and other things still tied around, and they're not reassembling cowl wipers and things of that nature. They're truly moving the vehicle around in some state.
Yeah. Sure.
And that's where, maybe there's a differentiation of a product. It was one of the questions that somebody had said, hey, can you bring this up and ask where that's going? Because maybe for our segment, we'd like to see a 15-minute product where other industries, and at the same time, you're already entrenched with the OEMs. So you'll probably get a heads up from them, or you have the access to know that. But it was just something that came up. I thought I'd ask.
No, I'll be honest. I think it's a really good point. And that it's important for us to understand that AGR, glass installation in general, it's not one thing, right? There's different segments of the market doing it in slightly different ways, and with slightly different requirements, and that's always important for us to make sure that we've got our finger on the pulse with regards to the market differentiation as well, and figuring out what's going to make the most sense for each segment. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Mark. Please.
No. I was just going to talk about it. If the customer needs it, we'll look into it. Just like our power cure, and we sell a lot of power cure out there because they need that product to cure in a certain way. So we talked about cure on demand, right? So if there's a need for it, we will look into it. And, like Mike talked about dispensing, we're seeing more and more in shop, work. So as that increases and production increases like that, they may go to drums,
sure,
and it may be a different formula that cures a little bit faster, or fully cure, so we're always open, we're looking, and if customers that we deal with, if they want it, we'll look at it.
Sure.
So if that is the need to cure faster so they can move it, put it on lifts, assemble, and we see the collision repair kind of, getting more involved in AGR.
There might
be a need for that.
I mean, PHEVs and these things that are so complex. There are some, I know Mike Stevens and I had talked about in the Southwest and the Phoenix market. You can literally go to a collision repair storage area and see 200-300 cars queued, ready to get in, because the lead time on parts for some of these vehicles means these things sit around, and then they have to pop in and out of production, and there's those things, and it's tricky, and that's, I'm not sure that the auto glass industry, there's a mad rush to come back in-house. And that I feel that the bolts kind of missed on that. That would have been great a couple of years ago when statics were predominant, but we're starting to see that shift wave back the other way where you're going, well, if it's going to be dynamic, you're a mobile installer again all over. And it's just an interesting thing. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. We've talked about a lot of things here today.
We did. Yeah.
How to get in touch. I mean, we're gonna make sure that all the information on how to get in touch with SIKA and things we've talked about in the links are below here, and they're also going to be on our Shatterproof website and our Facebook group as well. So you'll get a lot of information in there, and we're going to keep the conversation going with regards to this episode in a thread that'll be in the group. So always feel free to chime in there. But as far as anything else, Mike, Mark, what have I missed here today about the Ultimate product?
No, I think we've done a good job covering it, and I just encourage everybody, contact your SIKA rep, contact me, I'll get you in touch with the right person, and see the advantages of Ultimate. And as we, some of the labor that we have now, let's be honest, isn't as skilled. So it does streamline the process a lot of times. And even when I worked, for Safelite back in the day, windshields would come back in and they didn't have a pre-treatment on, and I know they're not exempt of it. Companies, independent and smaller companies, they're not exempt of it, of technicians making mistakes. And it kind of cuts out that mistake, and the first time you see it, you're like, man, I didn't have to do that. I wouldn't be looking at this car right now.
Sure.
So it does streamline the process. And if you're using a product that mandates a black pre-treatment, sometimes there's issues with that, from spillage on driveways. Getting, using more product than what you need, like Mike talked about the VOCs, it's flammable. It gets on your skin, the air that can be made with black primer, it just increases your risk. And with Ultimate, you eliminate that step.
Absolutely. And one thing I want to bring up too, so we talk, I hear the shop in the back going, I'm not going to get reimbursed for the cost of this if it's an insurance job. You're like, here we go. The thing I also want to point out is you're buying the right materials to save time, streamline the process, reduce error. So even if there's a premium on the product, cost-wise, it more than makes up for it on the backside. And I hope shops realize that it's just not the upfront. Like if I have this $5 thing here and I'm only getting paid $6, it's like, well, if I use a less inferior product, I can make $3, but then I'm like, well, then that extra 5 or 10 minutes in the other product you have to buy, and then you just naturally have leakage on those other products because of overuse and things of that nature. Your true cost ends up being about the same.
Yeah, and then also if you find yourself taking your black primer of whatever product you're using and it has, short open times, or, you contaminate it and you're throwing that money in the garbage, that's what you're doing. You're throwing money in the trash. Yeah. So if you can cut down on your expense with black primers, you're using it, with your metal prep and your rust and not for your pre-treatment, you're going to save money.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things too. It's if it's a product that you believe in for your business, there are multiple ways that you can recover the cost on it, whether it's insurance and the insured, or cash customer. Make sure your rates are right to fit your service. It's a premium service you're providing that's safe, short drive away time, and convenience for customers all the time is like, when can I drive my car? I gotta, you're gonna come during lunch and I only have 30 minutes after that. It's like, great. When the clock dings, drive it away. We don't care. Yeah. So those are things I always want to point out. Mike, anything else you want to put out there? I mean, obviously people come visit you in the labs.
Yeah, please. I definitely welcome it. Honestly, the thing that I would say about this, I've been in this, I've been in this industry for a long time. Not much phases me. I got really excited about this product, and it might be a little bit embarrassing to say you're excited about glue, but it's not something that I say lightly. It's not something that I say often. But when we got the final version of this and we started taking it out to customers and seeing their reactions and playing around with it in the lab on my own. Got really excited about it. We gave our development team a very, very high bar to try and meet, and the reality is that they came through on every front, and it's something. To me, it's something to be excited about. To me, it is something that is very unique in the AGR world. It's not something that that we've had access to before this. And at the same time, it's a really nice product to use. It's not difficult to work with. It's not going to fight you. It's not going to give you headaches. And to put all of those pieces together and be able to provide that to our customers, I'm excited about it. I think it's a really nice product, and so here I am excited about a urethane, which is not a sentence I thought I would say.
Part of SIKA's listening, so maybe we can get Mike in some kind of Flex Seal, more excitement, and maybe we'll flood a backyard and just have windshields, hold up the water. Because it's always that's the interesting part.
Mike would be the perfect candidate.
Yeah, because I can tell he was ramping up the excitement, ready to get out of the chair and go.
True.
This is great stuff. When it's your baby and you spend so much time and I mean, too, you 24 years in a company. I've been in this industry for 24 years, and I look back and go, God, when's this marathon over? And it's never there's never and to me, these are exciting times again. ADAS and the technology that comes around it. Your products have to evolve with it, and it is a very exciting time. We have some challenges with labor and pricing capitation and things of that nature. But truly, I don't have that same level of excitement that clearly Mike does. But it's good to see companies really care.
And he should be excited because he put a lot of effort in with the development of this product. Like I said, we've been talking about it a long time, and then finally to have the technology to make it, and then seeing it at the end, so he should be very excited. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I would be more curious, are any of the adhesive products you guys make on the bullet trains in Japan or anything, or?
Oh, I'm sure there are.
Yeah, see,
I don't know for certain, but I'd be very surprised if they weren't.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised where we have products. We have a big appliance division with our sound dampening, so from refrigerators to washer and dryers to dishwashers, you'd be surprised where there's
aerospace, to hockey masks and NASCAR and
the hockey mask, the goalie mask.
Wow.
Yep. That's ours. The NASCAR bodies.
Wow.
Those are our resins.
Okay.
Yeah. You would be shocked where you see SIKA now.
That's I'll never look at a hockey mask the same again.
I'll send you the picture.
There should be a little SIKA logo or something
the little triangle.
Right, just capitalize. You're like, is that a new group or something? Yeah. Because your marketing department is very clever with the logo. I'm actually, for me personally, I can't wait to see what the next logo design is for the next product. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I am a fan of the Ultimate Products logo.
And we should have a
contest,
a new product later this year that we're currently working on. So yeah.
All right. Something new for 24 to
yeah. I mean, we're always not with just our primary urethane products. We have auxiliary products like our 315 and our 714 and our 208 remover. We're always developing something.
Yeah. So and the thing is too, we're not just here talking about Ultimate. Obviously, Ultimate's important today, but the other SIKA products are all. That's why they should engage you at the Sunrise events.
Well, and even if you're not a SIKA end user, you would love our 315. You would love our 714 and our 208 remover and our sponges. Are all auxiliary products that anybody can use.
Because there's lots of shops you get involved in. You mentioned Texas. There's lots of disparate markets. You have one supplier you go to. Sometimes suppliers are more biased on products than other, or they just don't. It's a commodity. You buy it, we sell it, we don't talk to you. Have a nice day.
Or if you want one of our products, you like it, and you can't find it in your area, contact us. We'll make sure it's at that distributor.
Excellent.
And that's what our job is.
Good deal. Any closing comments there, Mike?
Here, really appreciate the time. Appreciate the invite. This has been a lot of fun, and yeah, just thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it because it's truly one of those products that, when we were putting the episode concept together, ultimate truly, if I had to say, is there a product of the year, for something that the industry saw in the last 12 months, this would be the product. And that's why I wanted to kind of frame it and focus it, get it out here for this episode. And two, just not the product, but it's the people behind it. And that is so important because I just have the pleasure of knowing you, Mark, and some of the other team members, and know the passion and dedication that you put behind every single one of these shops that you interact with.
And I think that's what separates us, from some of our competitors, are the people that work for SIKA.
And you have better swag. No, I mean, a hat or a shirt goes a long way if that hat or said shirt lasts. Exactly, and that's what's nice. And it truly is. I know some people give away scratch pads or this and that. And you're like, yeah, but it's something that truly is, again, it's the quality, because why would you have this great product like Ultimate and give away a t-shirt that after 2 washes is ready to be a
that's one thing that is the worst. Or somebody gives you a shirt and like, oh, I'm not going to wear that.
No, you're very, very thoughtful in it. And two, again, if I wear my Ultimate sports shirt that Mike Stevens gave me, a lot of people are like, yeah, Van Halen, good job.
That was Sam that sent those out. So you can,
thanks, Sam. I appreciate that. Yeah. But no, that's one of those things is somebody else in the gym's like, oh man, that guy's got the retro shirt on. He must have got it. Little do you know, hockey mask. That's what I can do now. Like the sports thing. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Appreciate the time. This has been Gary, Mike, and Mark with the Shatterproof Podcast. And again, one of the key things, all of this information is either below here on YouTube. You can find it on Spotify if you go and use Spotify online or on your mobile device. Scroll down, you'll find some information there. But definitely our Facebook group and our YouTube page, we have that information at the bottom. A lot of the information that Mark and Mike have said would be referenced in here. We will include down below. And we will have a subgroup here on the Shatterproof Podcast Facebook group where you can Q&A, interact with Mark and the team here. We'll make sure you guys get the invites for it. Thank you again for being here.
Thanks again, Gary.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you for tuning in to Looking Ahead, the Future of Automotive Adhesives with SIKA, recorded live in Las Vegas, Nevada, with guest hosts Mark OBrion and Mike Rea of SIKA Corporation. You've been listening to Shatterproof, the Auto Glass Journey for Independence broadcast, brought to you by the Independent Glass Association and me, Gary Hart, your host. If you haven't already liked this podcast or haven't subscribed, like this episode and hit that subscribe button so anytime we update the content, you will be the first to get access to all of this great media and industry information. We also want to thank the sponsors of this podcast, Rea Glass, who is also the maker of Glass Part Match, which is free to the industry, so get your account today at www.iga.org/GPM, and Augie by AirPro, that amazing on-the-glass targeting recalibration system, allowing you to work from anywhere at any time with the support you need to succeed. You can find all of the links referenced in this podcast in the descriptions or comments below. Again, thank you for tuning in and supporting the Independent Glass Association so we can continue to provide quality information and educational materials for the independent automotive glass industry.